Hi everyone. So last week we studied how Paul, after being arrested in Jerusalem for being falsely accused of bringing Gentiles into the temple, was transported under heavy guard to Governor Felix, who was an extremely immoral leader in Caesarea, and has spent 2 years under house arrest awaiting a decision on his case. And this week we therefore see how Paul is brought in front of Festus, the new ruler in Caesarea, and gets the opportunity to plead his case in front of King Agrippa and his sister Bernice and a whole courtroom packed with Gentiles. And so Paul takes the opportunity to share his testimony fully and proclaim the gospel boldly once more, and sets in motion the events that get his case heard in front of Caesar in Rome, somewhere that Paul has felt called to for a long time. So our key points for this week: number 1, appeal to Caesar; number 2, appeal to Agrippa; and number 3, appeal to everyone. Number 1, appeal to Caesar. Festus, the new ruler, is very different from Felix and is a Roman from a reputable and influential family, and has been sent to the region to bring about peace, order, and solidify Roman rule. 3 days into his arrival, he travels to Jerusalem to meet and establish a working relationship with the Jewish leaders, the Sanhedrin. They had hoped to prey on his immaturity in the role, requesting that Paul be transferred to Jerusalem for trial, probably planning once again to ambush and kill him on the way. However, Festus is determined to follow Roman rule of law and knows he can't transfer a Roman citizen for trial without their express agreement, so denies their request but agrees to review it as soon as he returns. Paul is therefore brought in front of Festus's tribunal the day after he gets back, and the Jewish leaders then start their expected accusations of which they have no proof. Paul presents his defence, that he has done nothing wrong against Jewish law, against the temple, or against Caesar. So Festus is unable to find a case against him either, but not wanting to upset the Jews, he asks Paul if he's willing to get the trial moved to Jerusalem. Paul senses the trap and sees that Festus is not interested in actually upholding the law and throwing the case out, but rather in securing his own position in the region, and so therefore appeals to Caesar. Paul knew what he was doing when he appealed to Caesar. He trusted in God's sovereign plan for his life, and he believed what the Lord had told him in Acts 23, that he would testify about him in Rome. But this appeal puts the new governor in a very difficult position, since now he needs to explain to the emperor why he's sending him to Rome and why he can't resolve this locally himself. This is not a great start to his reign as governor in the region. Number 2, appeal to Agrippa. King Agrippa arrives with his sister Bernice, who were in an infamous incestuous relationship. Emperor Claudius had actually ordered Bernice to marry a man called Polemo, but soon after their marriage she moved back in with her brother and continued to reign as his queen. So the infamous pair arrive on a state visit to welcome Festus to the region and to pay their respects. Knowing the long heritage that Agrippa had had in the region, and considering his family had ruled the Jews for many generations, he hoped that Agrippa and Bernice would help him unravel the case, or at least help him explain it to the emperor. These 2 Roman rulers are actually discussing the resurrection of Jesus, can you believe it, who the Romans themselves had crucified. So the next day, the whole assembly is brought together. The governor, the king and queen, the military tribunes, the leaders of the area, the highly educated and powerfully influential audience is brought together, and God has appointed Paul to proclaim the gospel to them boldly and completely. Paul then presents his defense. And although he's preaching to the room, his focus is constantly towards Agrippa himself. And he thoroughly goes through his testimony from his early days as an active Pharisee that persecuted the followers of Jesus, to his encounter with Jesus on the road to Damascus, through to his life as an evangelist across the known world. Paul is demonstrating how Jesus transformed his life completely by the grace of God, and that he has the power to do anything, even raise someone from the dead. He reminds them that Pharisees hold to the belief of the resurrection of the dead, and even that the Old Testament states that the Messiah must suffer and die, and then would be the first to be raised from the dead. The issue at stake here is that the Jews are rejecting that Jesus is that promised Messiah. And what offends them even more is the message of God's transforming and redeeming grace was for everyone, not just the Jews, but Gentiles too. Festus's response to the gospel is that Paul must be insane. He doesn't want to listen anymore, and how on earth can he send this man to Caesar? On what legal basis? But calmly, Paul and respectfully states that his words are true and rational, and then directs his appeal to Agrippa directly, and passionately pleads with him to respond to this message. Agrippa's response to Paul is, how can he be expected to be persuaded to become a Christian in such a small period of time? Number 3, appeal to everyone. Paul's response to King Agrippa demonstrates his heart that in this and every moment, that those to whom he proclaims the gospel would respond and become followers of Jesus. Paul is not trying to use this occasion to secure his freedom. Paul knows that by going to Rome, he will get the opportunity to present the gospel to the most influential leader and courtroom of all time, Caesar's himself, and that the decision that is made there will determine the freedom that all Christian followers might be able to live under. So the stakes are far higher than his own comfort and freedom. Paul knows that God is sovereign, and he asserts that God has helped him to this very day, as he asserts in verse 22, and that he's called to testify to the small and the great alike, because all need to hear the gospel and have the opportunity to respond to that extravagant offer of grace that God has for mankind. So what's our application this week? Well, do you believe that God's good news is for everyone? Do you see how extravagant his grace and love is, that no one is beyond the reach of his arm? Do you have a heart that loves the lost, regardless of their ethnicity, background, beliefs, position, and status? And when was the last time that you shared your testimony of God's transformative grace in your life with somebody? Are you ready at a moment's notice to share with people that God brings into your life the good news of Jesus? If not, why not take the opportunity this week to actually physically write down your testimony and practice it with someone, maybe a close friend or another lady in your group? Because the more we practice, the easier it is to share it with the lost and the broken people that we encounter on the front lines of our lives. And then ask God to actually bring people into your life that need to hear your story of God's transformative grace in your life, of how God pursued and rescued you and brought you into his eternal family. I hope you have a great week, ladies. We'll speak to you soon. Bye.